Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back. Welcome to the watch list for Monday, November 21st. I put these watch lists out for you guys every single day for free, for your benefit, to teach you guys, to help you guys learn how to trade this strategy, how to become more profitable, more consistent, and that's what we're going to do today with the watch list for Monday. I'm on Twitter at Mr. Clark Griswold, and I usually go through a top 5, or I used to. That top 5 is now part of the Griswold Gold membership. You can find that information in the Discord, the Griswold Trading Discord. That link is in the description below. So 95% of what I offer is free in that Discord. It's free here. It's free on Twitter. But there is a paid portion where you get live trading bots. You get the Griswold Strat indicator. You get one-on-ones with myself. You get group chats with myself and the other group members, and a bunch of other really great things. Ad-free YouTube videos. So make sure you guys go check that out. All the details are in that Discord. And then there's a pinned tweet on Twitter as well. Speaking of those ad-free YouTube videos that are part of the Griswold Gold membership, there are ads on here. I'm going to ask you guys and thank you guys in advance for letting those ads roll through, because those ads keep this stuff free for you guys. It lets the advertisers pay for your education, and it also pays for my time. So I'm going to thank you guys in advance for letting those things roll through. Let's get started on this watch list. There is one other thing, guys. The screen that you see here, that's TradingView. That's how I chart everything that I do here. It's how I chart all of my trades. So if you're looking for something like this, you can go into the description. There's a link for a free 30-day trial for the subscription-based service on TradingView. I use the sub-service. There is a free version of it, but if you click on that link down below, you'll get to try out the free version, or the subscription-based service for free for 30 days. And then if you decide to use that service, you get up to $30 off of that subscription. So make sure you guys are taking advantage of that free 30-day offer down below. So let's get started on the watch list. I'm going to start off with NEO. So NEO has a 2-up that finished red, and so when we have that 2-up that's red, we are always going to look, or for the most part, we're always going to look for a trend back to the downside, because that's what probabilities tell us, that when we have a 2-up, meaning a directional candle, we only break the high side of the previous candle right here. We're going to look for that to trend back to the downside. So we're going to look for puts on this thing at $10.26. And yes, right now we've got full time frame continuity to the downside outside of the month. But when we open up on Monday, the hourly, the daily, and the weekly, those three are all brand new candles opening up on Monday. Okay, so when we have that, a lot of times Rob Smith will say, let them open up. And that's okay. You can do that, or you can just jump right in. But just be aware that, you know, these all three may be green in the morning, all three may be red in the morning. So pay attention to that. You also notice the 2 pink lines that we've got here. That is telling me I've got a inside bar on the weekly. Okay, and that what also tells me that is this yellow circle on this time frame continuity indicator, which is part of the Griswold Strat indicator. Okay, so if we go to the weekly, you guys will see here there's an inside bar in the weekly. So the high and the low are marked out, and this play will be in the weekly video, so make sure you go check out the weekly swing video as well. But here's the thing. If we trend to the downside, like probabilities are telling us, our first target is the trigger for the weekly for us to go 2 down on the week. So it's almost a domino effect where we have the day triggers the week. Okay? We'll move on to SPY. SPY, same thing. So this is a little bit different. SPY has a 2-up, finished red, but we have a hammer candle, meaning we have this big body at the top with a long wick at the bottom. And when we have that, it's a bullish signal. And it's an actionable signal when we're talking about the strat. So the problem is it's red. So there's a little bit of conflict. That's why I have triggers on the top side and the bottom side. So again, we can trigger to the top side. We can take calls at 397.81, and we've got first targets marked out. But it's also a 2-up red. So if we trigger down and trend down, then this is our weekly trigger to go 2 down on the week. This blue line, anything below that, tells me we are red on the month. So if we trigger down and we hit targets here and then we cross this blue line, then we've got the monthly, the weekly, the daily, the hourly, and the yearly all pointing to the downside on SPY. We'll move on to Apple. Apple has a 2-up red. Same thing as SPY, but we're going to look for puts here at 149.97 and good magnitude down to the bottom at 146.15, meaning there's a lot of space between the trigger and the target, a lot of meat on the bone, so to speak. And that's what I would rather see here than a target that's sitting closer to that trigger. Just gives us more opportunity to take some profit on that trade. We'll move on to AAL. It's American Airlines. So AAL has a 2-up that finished red. We can look for puts on AAL at $13.92. First target at $13.68. And if we do that, that would push this time frame continuity to the downside outside of that quarterly chart. 2-up red on Boeing. So Boeing also has these 2 pink lines. We're stuck in an inside bar on Boeing. So we're going to look for, and listen, there's a ton of plays that are set up like this, guys, where we've got this day trigger set up for puts at 171.53. And then our first target is also the trigger for the weekly. So that could allow you to stay in this trade a little longer. So if I'm looking to jump into this trade after it triggers, I'm looking at like a 171, maybe a 170 strike price, and I'm taking Friday as my expiry. Now you can take 2 Fridays out if you want. Gives you a little bit more time, a little less burn on your premium, which is called theta. But either way is fine. But if we hit these targets and then break through them, that's an opportunity for us to maybe sit in this trade a little longer. Now, I have a little bit of problem sitting in swing trades because when I hit that 20 or 30% early, that 20 or 30% sets me up really nicely for the rest of my week. So I'll take that 30% usually. I have a tough time being patient and sitting in those swing trades and holding them overnight. But that's a play on Boeing. And you'll see when we go through the weekly charts, you're going to see a lot of the same daily setups there as well. But the first targets being the trigger. So it's a domino effect. You trigger the day, you trigger the month. The week. So Bank of America is the same thing. We've got a 2-up red. We're going to look for puts at 36.92. And our first target, again, is the trigger for the weekly. I can go to the weekly and show you that's an inside bar. Okay, I know that it's an inside bar for 2 reasons. We've got this yellow circle, part of the Griswold Strat indicator, and then the 2 pink lines that I've marked out on the weekly chart that tell me it's an inside bar. We'll move to Citigroup. Citigroup, same thing, 2-up finish red. We can look for puts at 48.16. First target is the trigger for the weekly again. It's a common theme of this week. We'll see if how many of those set up actually to turn into longer swing trades. As a possibility for people. CCL, Carnival Cruise Lines, 2-up red, same thing. Puts at 9.39 is our trigger, and first targets at 9.15. That would also put the monthly to the downside as well, to be a red candle. So we would have sellers across the board outside of that quarterly. Okay, CCL on to DraftKings. So DraftKings is a little bit interesting. We've got a 2-up red. So we're looking for puts at 14.96 and first targets. We're also at the top of a broadening formation. And if I zoom out, that broadening formation was set up all the way back in June here at higher highs and lower lows there. So when we have that, it's a possibility for this to trend down. And if we do trend down on those puts, we've got full time frame continuity. So DraftKings is a fairly nice setup. We've got a 2-up red, we've got the top of a broadening formation, and we've got full time frame continuity possible to the downside on DraftKings. Ford Motor Company, 2-up, finished red, inside bar, puts at 13.82, and again, first targets, trigger 2 down on the weekly, inside bar, 2 pink lines, yellow circle. We would also go red on the month right here at that blue line. So full time frame outside of the quarterly for Ford. Lucid, if we trend down on this one, which is a 2-up red, we would have full time frame continuity to the downside right across the board. So puts at 11.09, first targets at 11.03. XOM is opposite of most of what we've been seeing. It's a 2 down green. So we're going to look for this to trend back to the upside with calls at 112.48, first targets at 113.20. These are our triggers for the weekly. Okay, make sure you check out that weekly swing video. AMD 2 up red. So we're going to look for puts at 72.18, first target at 70.16, which is also, again, the trigger for the weekly. We are also, that's the bottom of a broadening formation. So we'll see how that one plays out on AMD. BIDU 3-1 setup. So the yellow candles and the white candles are part of the Griswold Strat indicator. So is this yellow highlight. Now, this is essentially just an inside bar, but when we have the 3 before it, it's a more rare pattern. It doesn't happen very often. So you can see off of these 3 ones, this one trended up for 2 days. This one, off of this 3-1, trended down for multiple days. So you can look for that. Essentially, we don't want to see, a lot of times what will happen is we'll have these gaps, meaning that, let's get this out here, meaning that we open, below that trigger. Okay, that's a gap play. If you want to know how to play those, at the end of this video in the top right-hand corner, I've got a playlist. You guys can check that out. It'll show you exactly how to play the gap plays. But inside bars, guys, so I'm going to go over this for anybody who's new, but essentially an inside bar, or this yellow bar that you see, doesn't break the high or the low of the previous candle. It stays within the range of that candle. So we call it a consolidating candle or a tightening range. And when you see those yellow candles, I want you guys to think of a spring being loaded and compacted and looking for an explosion up to one side or the other. And that's essentially what we're looking for, is for a big explosion up or a big explosion down off of the next candle. Okay, so that's how we play the inside bars. We'll move on to CRM. So CRM is an outside bar currently. Here's the thing. We've got a trigger down here for the weekly. Okay, so I've also put a trigger down here. That yellow or that yellow line that you saw, that is our trigger for the daily. So we're going to look for CRM to trend back to the downside, opening up on Monday. And that would give us time frame continuity to the downside. So we can look for puts at 145.65 for day trades or swing trades. So your first target would be here at 141.74 on a day trade. On a swing trade, you'd be looking at 138.66. So quite a big difference. We'll see what happens on CRM next week as we open up. CVX, 2 down green. We can look for calls at 183.41 on CVX. Etsy, inside bar. So we talked about the inside bars. Calls at 116.85. First target at 117.35. Here's another thing that I like to talk to you guys about. Let's say we open up here and we come and hit targets just above, and then it comes back through that target. I would be looking at taking profits, guys. Because a lot of times what will happen, and there's not a lot of room here, and that's what I was talking about. I like to see a little bit of meat on the bones. I like to see those targets with some room to move on. And when we don't, a lot of times is we'll hit that target and we reverse back through it, and that candlestick will never hit that target again. So just be very cautious and make sure you are taking your profit. If you come up through there and start reversing back through, make sure you leave that trade with profit. That's on Etsy. GE, 2 up red. We can look for puts on GE at 84.85. And again, first target is our trigger for the weekly. So again, we'll go through those in the weekly swings as well. 2 up red on GameStop. We're going to look for puts at 26.83 on GME. Goldman Sachs, 2 up red. We'll look for puts at 377.39. And I don't need to talk to you guys about that pink line anymore, because you know that's the target for the daily. It's also the trigger for the weekly on Goldman Sachs. IWM, same thing, okay? Puts at 182.57. Your first targets are here, and we're all red if we do that outside of the quarterly. JP Morgan, 2 up red, and an inside bar. So this, again, I've done this the same way I did SPY. Hammer candle, but it's also 2 up red. So calls at 134.67. Our first target is also our trigger for the weekly. Puts at 132.28. Our first target is also the trigger to go 2 down on the weekly. So JP Morgan is a little bit interesting next week. Lift. So Lift, again, This is a 2 down red, but we have a trigger on the weekly, okay? We are inside bar on the weekly, but we are way closer to going 2 down on the week than 2 up. I'm going to look to take this trade during the day or on the week. We have full time frame continuity to the downside if that happens. First targets are marked out, so lift, I am looking to trend down next week. Macy's, 2 up red. Okay, puts at 21.94. And guys, I know a lot of this stuff is showing bearish, but the market does what the market does, and we might be all green next week. It very well could happen. But the probabilities are telling us that we are trending down. Okay, and we play our trades, we play the next candle, we play the strategies based off of probabilities, and always off of probabilities and what should happen and then what does happen. Okay, that's how we trade, and then we manage the risk. And the best traders are the ones who manage their risk the best, and that's just what it is. Anybody can click a button to jump in on a trade, but the best traders manage those trades better than anybody else. Moderna has a 2 up red, so that gives me probability that this is going to trend down. We also have a shooter candle, which again is a bearish symbol, and it gives me probability that we are going to trend down. So 181.22 is our trigger. First target at 178.98 on Moderna. I think I said that wrong. Moderna's trigger is 181.22, first target 178.98. Maybe I did say that right. No editing here, guys. Straight through. Morgan Stanley, 2 up red, top of a broadening formation. We're going to look for puts at 88.59 and first targets at 87.51, which is also, staying with the theme, the trigger to go 2 down on the week on MS. MU, Micron Technologies, 2 up red, puts at 58.10, and what do you know? The first target at 56.51 is also the trigger to go 2 down on the week. Nike, 2 up red. We'll look for puts at 104.17. First target, 102.92 on Nike. NVAX, not something I usually have on here. We've got an outside bar. And again, outside of the quarterly, if this trends down and we are closer to going 2 down red than we are 2 up, I'm going to look for puts at 1936, and then we can mark our first target out here at the next outside bar at 1856. So that's good magnitude on that setup for NVAX. Pfizer, 2 up red. We can look for puts on Pfizer at 47.87. Time frame continuity for the most part is pointing to the upside, but again, when we open, if we trend down, the hourly, the daily, and the weekly will all be red. If we hit targets, the monthly will be red, and that will change everything to red outside of the quarterly. So it happens very, very quickly, especially when the weeks open. Palantir is another one of those plays, guys. We've got full time frame continuity to the downside. We're going to look for puts here at 731 with a 2-2 continuation on Palantir. PayPal has an inside bar. Full time frame continuity to the downside. First target to the downside is the trigger for the weekly. So a lot of things are telling us there's a high probability that PayPal trends down this week, or at least on Monday. So puts can be taken at 84.83. First targets at 83.51. Again, that's the trigger for the weekly. Or we can look for calls at 87.28. First target is not great at 6 cents. The next one would be way higher up at 89.72 in that range. QQQ, 2 up red. We can look for puts on this at 282.32. And again, first target is also the trigger to go 2 down on the weekly. That would also push us red on the month, so full time frame outside of the quarterly. Sellers across the board outside of that 3-month chart. We move on to Roku. Looks almost identical to QQQ. Very similar. 2 up red. That finished red on Roku. Full time frame to the downside right across the board. Puts at 54.92. First target 54.37. So we can look for Roku to trend back down next week. Uber, inside bar. We know all about the inside bars. Again, we've gone through them. You guys know how to play them. They're the easiest setup for anybody to play who's new or struggling. Concentrate on those inside bars. And if you're struggling on the day trade setups themselves, guys, switch to intraday. Switch to that 30, switch to that 15-minute chart, switch to that 5-minute chart, and just follow the triggers and follow the targets on inside bars or 2-2 reversals with time frame continuity. So when I day trade, I really only need this hourly and this daily pointing in the same direction. Everything else is just bonus. And by bonus, I mean higher probability that that trade works in our favor. Okay, so Uber calls at 29.41, puts at 28.70. XOP, 2 down, finish green, hammer candle. We can look for calls on this one at 154.45. And first targets at 155.77 on XOP. We go to Alibaba, inside bar, 3-1 setup actually. So calls at 82.52, puts at 79.86. If we go back in time, here was the last 3-1, trigger, target. Beautiful setup. Okay, beautiful win. Here's the next one, 3-1. We gapped up. We talked about the gap plays again. Those will be at the end of this video. And ended up running for 2 days. So I like to go back in time to show you guys that, yes, the majority of the time these setups do work, high probability, but they don't always play out that way. Okay? So, like I said, calls at 82.52, puts at 79.86 on Alibaba. LTHM, 2 up green. This could very well be a 2 up red. The thing I'm looking at here is this time frame continuity outside of the year. So puts at 28.15 is what I'm going to look at. First targets at 27.36. We're going to look for LTHM to trend down on Monday. Guys, if you found this information helpful, please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe down below. Hit the bell. The bell will let you know when I send these videos out every single day. Gives you notifications that the video is out. Okay, so make sure you're clicking on both of those. Follow me on Twitter at Mr. Clark Griswold and get in on the Discord. The link for the Discord is in the link in the description. There's a link in the description below to get in on the Discord. So again, thank you guys for watching. I wish you nothing but the best this week and on Monday, and we will see you all on the next one. Bye-bye.